Do you see anything missing? No. I got no turbos, Ted! You're a smart fence, Ted. I bet you a couple of TD04 turbos will pull a premium 1 week before Race Wars. You mean those TD04 turbos? Okay, now starts the fun part. I got all my hoses labeled, bottles out of this general area, and tray off. You can see I'm going to need a valve cover gasket, which we'll do after this, and probably redo all the injector seals and everything as well. But we are in final countdown here. Next up is disassembling our suspension components so we can drop this assembly down and get access to everything. And I'm curious how I'm going to have to, or if I'm going to have to deal with the axle in the way. I suspect that I do. Hashtag XI problems. Setup's pretty straightforward. Donut gasket inside here, oil feed, oil drain, and coolant's on the other side. And these are like almost like aluminum foil consistency, and they crush in the cylinder head in a groove shaped just like them. So I'm getting them sat all the way to the flange so that as I push the turbo up, there's not a lot of room that the bolts have to suck it in. It sort of mates as close as it can, and the bolts are just tightening it up. Well, the first turbo is in and pretty uneventful. Actually pre-planned. Oil feed line is coming out behind the heat shield. Helps me locate everything on the turbo. And then these water lines are flexible, so now I'll just put that in and we'll be ready to go. So far so good. A little bit of lube to help the O-ring fit into the turbo. And then I'll use soapy water on the water line, but we gotta put the turbo up first. This next bit is a little bit of an OCD thing I'm doing just for me. I took my subframe down. This is the XI subframe, so it's not aluminum. It's all steel, and it's got just some rust spots forming on it. So I'm just going to primer a little bit of the rust spots. I've been scuffing it down. We'll primer a little bit of the rust spots and then give it some just Rust-Oleum black and paint over it, just to bring it up to snuff. You got it out of the car, why not do it? 10 minutes really kicks the project up on a whole nother level. Nice and shiny, almost looks new. Did 2 coats just with Rust-Oleum. Should be enough just to keep things tidy. We are back to reassembly, and everything is loosely plumbed in. Like anything, you don't tighten any of it up until you know you're done. Here's what my conundrum is. Got these 2-inch outlets, which are supposed to add a little bit of horsepower, you know, open everything up. And you see how close they are in the exhaust manifolds? Like the one on the back is not quite touching, and the one up front is touching. Now, I am very nervous about that. Right now, like, the engine's on the brace, so I'm not entirely sure if this is gonna, like, relax down or anything. And unfortunately, the only way to really know how this is going to work is to put it all together. I've already trimmed a good amount off of that here to try and add some clearances. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to put it all together and add some aluminum or something. That just, I don't know, it screams disaster to me. So we'll see what I end up doing. But I'm not super happy with the fitment. Worth calling out, these are Chinese eBay outlets because I said, you know, how much technology can be in a silicone hose. Well, here's an example of buy it right the first time or buy it a few times. So we'll see how it goes together, but I'm not optimistic.
This, that, or the other. We're taking examples are aliases of real-life computer hackers, types of mushrooms, or titles of anime series. Okay, Keith, the first one is for you. Of poisonous mushrooms. Oh wow, as a surprise. Continues to change up until mid-20s. And the reason it's relevant is because the cortex is the primary purpose study brains of kids, adults, and teens, specifically looking at the genome to see what they find rewarding. And what's something that people find rewarding? Sugar. We hooked them up to a straw, and we fed them just working sugar water was often incinerated first. And they're told that they have to get meals as quickly as possible to earn some extra money. Come someone, you can throw water inside, come to in the store or something like that. But for adolescents, the real risk is not fitting in. We adults can do to promote our neurotransmitters of our brains. On the show today, next time. See what certain innovation will be available. Real UCBN. This is an important time for all of us to be well informed. 19.3 on deeper head radio hour comes from C3.A and software enables notifications to which serves as a neural investment to create new neurons. What grow in neurons can ready to do now and get this. I'm to give you a set of your next season. And you tell me if you think they will increase your density or if they will decrease your density. This is on to during this quiz, children can see so what about
Things are buttoned up. I have the water jug and air canisters left off. I still have to fill the coolant system. What I did next is disconnected all the fuel injectors, and then we cranked the motor over for 10 seconds. Now I'm going to have a look for some oil leaks. I'm going to start from my oil leaks by looking at the oil drain lines. Right there, going into the return in the block there is one. We got no leaks, so that looks good and dry. The other one, it's harder to see on the XI, but you see it there. But those are both dry. Next up, we'll fill with coolant and see if any of that comes out, and if not, we'll actually start it. So I'm putting the bottles back on, and we've run into a little bit of a hiccup. I've had to make my own holes and massage the fitment so that I can pull it off that, and now you see no clearance issues on the intake. There's probably still going to be some impact as the engine revs, but I don't know, man. Don't buy crappy parts from China, and I might be done already. That's been the moral of this story, is that yes, China, non-moving things like silicone couplers seem like a obvious go for it attempt, but none of the shit fits. And I would definitely be done by now if I had just bought stuff known to fit and work correctly. But anyhow, we're almost there. So you can see now how that sits, and good enough for who it's for, I guess. In a twisted bit of irony, I bought Chinese inlet and outlets, silicone inlet and outlets, but BMW branded coolant. It's the BMW tax. It's real. Now we're going to bleed the coolant, and we'll probably add more as it goes. One of the benefits of the electric water pump in the BMW is that you can do this without the car running. So we turn the car on, turn the heat to max, the fan on the lowest setting, and then just hold the accelerator pedal for about 10 seconds. As you can just barely make out in there, you see some water flowing as it primes, lets the air burble, primes, lets the air burble. And we'll do this a few times until we're all the way full. And that's all it takes. It's pretty smart. BMW gets points for this one. And we check for leaks. Everything is dry. Knock on wood, this might actually work on the first try. The last step before I can throw everything on is I'm going to replace my exhaust gaskets. These are original to the car, so 90,000 miles and 13 years. I don't owe anybody anything. So I'm just going to chase them out on some gasket material and cut them out. So now I get my punch out, my bolt, make sure that fits. And we'll just punch them out here. And then I'll punch one out here and I'll cut it out. I might even try it with a chisel to see if I can save this material. You never know what you need gasket material for. But that's it. Success. It worked fine. Had to get the jump battery out after pumping all the oil and then pumping the water pump for a few cycles, but no leaks. I'll finish putting it together and then I think we're done. I'm excited if you can't tell. What you're looking at right now is the front silicone outlet that runs into the intercooler from the front turbo, and you'll see I put some aluminum tape on there, and you'll also see after trimming I managed to get it to no longer be touching the exhaust manifold. So I'm hoping with that aluminum tape and that hose clamp and a tiny bit of air gap that our Chinese silicone outlet is going to be holding together. So everything's buttoned up on the car, and we've done about 2 weeks of aggressive street driving in Mexico and some data logging as well. So these pure stage 2 cast turbos, supposed to be rated to 700 horsepower. My factory turbos came in on the data loggers, internal dyno capability at 435 horsepower, and the larger turbos and larger inlets and outlets came in on that same data logging software at 538. I don't necessarily think that is going to be the actual number, but if you can accept that it does the calculations the same way repetitively, we've added 100 units of whatever horsepower that the data logger uses. I'm really, really happy with the results. It definitely noticeably pulls much faster. We did a 12.9 on the factory turbos, so if the numbers work out, I would hope for 12.5 on a really good day, maybe a 12.3 if we ran an E85 blend. I'm super happy with that. So with that, we're done. I hope some of those tips and tricks might help you out when you do your own turbo build. If you're shopping for parts, don't buy Chinese silicone hoses because they suck. Other than that, used all OEM parts and name brand parts, and I've been super, super happy with the results.